Welcome back to Drive Your Journey. I'm here with Alex Urbina. Alex Urbina is author of The Inspirational Parent, the magical ingredients for effective parenting. Good friend, a life coach, dad, author, Dodger fan. Well, actually, you're a radio host. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Love the book. So what's the inspiration behind The Inspirational Parent?
The crux to the book is really to inspire more parents to be willing to look at themselves and be willing to go on a journey of personal growth, and to be willing to embrace the idea that if I work on myself, meaning work through my own insecurities and take the next step of awareness and conscious parenting aspect of your journey as a parent, and really start to look at how you could be affecting the growth process of your own son or daughter, and really kind of step into that role of responsibility and kind of make some of those fine-tunements within your own parenting, such that you're seeing the results manifest in your kid's behavior, in your child's self-esteem. I think that's really the inspirational parent in a nutshell, is to have you read this book and be inspired to start your own journey of conscious parenting.
The one thing that I've learned from Alex that was very evident to me is the things I was doing, or the dysfunctions we think that maybe our kids are doing, they're just mirroring you. Have you ever heard the comment that, God, you're just like your father, or you're just like your mother, or whatever? We are a mirror. So when we see a bad habit in our children, perhaps it's because we have that bad habit. And that was a big aha for me.
Yeah, it's like, when I talk about parents and the things that their kids are showing up in a specific way, a lot of times in a more loving and subtle way, I have to ask them that question, like, where do you think they learned that from? Or, and you really think
it's
about,
sobering, isn't it?
When you think about our kids, when they're born to us, they're born like a blank slate. And it's through our teaching and our modeling and the things that we do or don't do, or who we're being or not being, that our kids make up stories about themselves. And a lot of those stories they make up about themselves, I call them limiting beliefs, right? If they're negative, it's a limiting belief, like I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or my dad doesn't love me the way he loves my brother or my sister. And so all of those insecurities get in the way of your child's full potential. And to be able to be on this conscious parenting journey, to be aware of that, then you're able to make some course corrections so that it manifests in your child's growth.
Yep, love it. So I'm going to touch upon a couple
Let's do
chapters
it.
in this book. I have a few of my favorites. The first one is patience. Patience, and that's chapter 4. What does patience mean to you when it comes to parenting?
Yeah, when I wrote that article, when we talked about the distinction of patience, I didn't want it to be about just normal distinction of just regular patience. What I wanted it to be is to paint the possibility that as human beings, we operate from a place of I need this now. And if you learn anything about the universe has its own timeline, and it's unfolding the way it's unfolding, regardless of what you do or how much you want it to happen or your eagerness or your commitment level. The universe has its own game plan, it's unfolding. And I think that it's masterful for us as human beings to recognize and really acknowledge that the universe is unfolding in a certain way. And with our commitment and with our efforts and everything we're giving, putting into wanting our certain results, we can't muscle the universe. You can't make the universe manifest the amount of money you want tomorrow and all those kinds of things. So it's really about learning and discovering the distinctions of what is patience. And it's funny because I was sat with a client today and I was talking about this distinction, and I asked him, I said, what does patience mean to you? And even in that question, you sit back and you go, what does patience mean to me? And then as you start to articulate yourself, the 3 or 4 different ideas of what patience means, I'm asking you, are you open to those 2 or 3 things that there's 20 or 40 different distinctive levels of patience, that if you learn them, that you now can understand it at a higher level and then master the art of being patient.
Alex, I want to talk to you about chapter 9, vulnerability. That means so many different things to so many different people.
Yeah, I discovered my vulnerability in a really profound way in my early 20s. And I realized how powerful vulnerability is, and how when you give yourself permission to really be vulnerable, you really trust the other people that you're with your vulnerability. And what I learned how to do was practice being more vulnerable in my relationships with the people I love the most, starting with my wife and then starting with my kids. So for example, if I sat down with my son or daughter and allowed my walls to come down and really be vulnerable with them, it would sound like, hey, son, I'm really afraid that if you do or don't do these things, that something's going to happen to you, and that's my fear. And so I'd have to really bring my walls down and trust him with sharing my fear, and trust that he's not going to take that and manipulate me with it and do all the things that my fear comes up with when it comes to being vulnerable. So vulnerability, when you really access those ways, helps the other person hook to your heart, and they really trust you in a whole other level than just being in a relationship in a surfacey level. And I learned that when I'm really vulnerable with my kids, they respond in a different way. They trust me more. It allows them to be vulnerable and share, and we just have deep, powerful conversations at that point.
One of the best lessons you taught me was I had some fear around my first Ironman 3 years ago, these Ironman races that I complete. And there was a lot of fear around it because I had never done one before, trained for it. And you said, just be vulnerable and ask your kids for some advice. And I remember doing that at a restaurant, going to dinner and saying, can I get your advice? And they're looking at me like, you want my advice?
Right.
I go, I'm really fearful. And I got some of the best thoughts, wisdom from, in a different perspective from them. And it opened up a whole new door of conversation that I never believed was possible.
There's also the possibility that you really gave them a gift to be there for you, to nurture you, to comfort you, to give you some advice. And that really kind of solidifies, man, he's reaching out to me to ask for my advice, and that bonds you in a whole nother way that's not possible.
Yeah, it was extremely powerful. One more chapter we're going to touch upon, chapter 10, and that is honesty. What does honesty mean? Because let me just tell you, I don't need some people to be honest with me and tell me my suit's not perfectly, pressed. Sometimes, but I want them to be, I want some honesty when it comes to the authentic side of being real.
Yeah, when I talk about vulnerability, there's a part in there that paints the picture of being honest. And when I wrote this chapter, I wanted it not to be just a regular honesty. I wanted it to be more about being emotionally honest. So it's more about, can you be emotionally honest with what you're actually feeling right now? Like, what are you going through? So for example, instead of yelling at my daughter because she got in late, right? And just kind of, reading her the riot act and going from, all the fear-based stuff.
And you had 2 daughters and just 1 son, so you had a double.
Yeah, and so it's like, instead of just being on automatic pilot and then just, start hammering in on being late, it might start off with, I was really afraid. And if something happened to you, I don't know how I would be able to live with myself if something happened to you, and you mean the world to me. And so to be emotionally honest, I think is the greatest gift that you can give your kids, and it really solidifies that they trust you and you trust them.
One of the things I say to my son often is keep making good choices. So you kind of just change the mindset by you asking your daughter that, or telling her your fears. Next time she's going to go, I don't want to put my father in that position. And I think most people in this world, especially children, will come from that place of their spirit that you've taught me, versus arguing if you let them be in that space.
Yeah, and then most parents tell me, like, how do I get my son or daughter to think of me and what I might be going through? And that's kind of the opening to that as well. You first have to let them know that you do care and that you are afraid.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. Love the book, The Inspirational Parent. It can be found on Amazon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And those who want to reach out to you, how can they get you?
You can email me at alex@alexurbina.com or 661-505-5021.
Will you come back? We'll talk about the rest of the book.
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. We'll be right back.